Well, gee, I'm looking at this list. There's one or two things in the news right now that I guess people want to talk about. As a matter of fact, I got a number of requests as early as Sunday to ask us to do a special episode this week because people wanted to know what we had to say about everything going on in the news. We resisted, but we got a lot to talk about. So I'm just going straight into introductions so we can get into this agenda. I guess it's probably not a surprise that we've got Patrick Sheehan here this week because not only is a state representative for the 37th district, also has served as a police officer. He served in local office. And I think we got a few topics that are perfect for Patrick. So thanks for being here, man.
No problem. Thank you, Collin. I really appreciate it. I know Chris and I have been playing some phone tag on whether I was going to be a guest or not, but I'm excited to be on. We're at the epicenter of the news, and I can't wait to dive into it.
Well, listen, I think Chris has gotten way too much attention and love lately, so I'm glad you're here to steal that away. We could do without a little Chris love for a week. We also have with us Jim Rule, one of my favorite people in politics. He's the chairman of the Tazewell County Republicans, and he's a pretty humble dude, so he probably could have given us 37 other titles that we would add here, but that's just not how Jim rolls. What's going on, Jim? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm looking forward to it.
We have Michael, who everyone wants to hear more from, and then we got that dude Chris, who some people, I guess, want to hear from. Michael, what's up, dude? You ready to bring some fire this week?
Yeah, a lot of things to talk about, that's for sure.
I hope you pounded a Red Bull before you started.
Colin, if you don't want to hear from me, I can always log off and go do something else. I don't have to be here, Colin.
Chris, I'm going to out you. When you were off, and we had that 1 month where you were off every other week, I'll tell people you complained because you missed it. So don't even
That's
pretend
not true at all. What are these lies?
Yeah.
These are lies.
Yeah, don't even pretend. All right, let's start here. If you've watched more than 5 minutes of SFR over the last few years, you know I hate talking national politics, but sometimes national politics careens into Illinois politics. And when it comes to crime in Chicago, those two things have become part and parcel, and we got to talk about that. So Trump is threatening and even potentially, it seems like, making some moves to send the National Guard out to Chicago. Crime is a problem in the city, even though Democrats in this state seem to try to convince you that everything's okay. Don't worry, there is no crime in Chicago. But Trump and the White House are having nothing to do with it. There's a lot to get into here, but I don't want to push any of our participants this week in one direction or another. So let me just open it up, and we'll let our guests go first. Patrick, if you want to start us off, kick us off on this. I mean, what are your thoughts? Obviously, crime is a big deal. Sending the National Guard is also a big deal. I'm just curious how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild that we're at the epicenter of the news, but I've kind of said this before on some of my tour around Chicago media this week that I'm really not shocked. So as a police officer for nearly 20 years and then now, serving dual capacities down in the legislature, we've talked about this in both capacities, the issues with cashless bail and how it's demoralized our police officers. We feel like these catch and release policies are a headache for us. I mean, we've seen resignations and retirements at ridiculous levels. I mean, we're coddling criminals. Our judges have lost discretion. It's turned our judicial system here in the state into a revolving door. And I mean, who pays the price on all this? It's the citizens, it's the victims of the crimes. I've heard countless stories. I've seen it. I've heard it as a legislator. I see it every day as a police officer. These are real victims. These are real stories. I mean, they feel like they're not able to get any peace, any justice when someone's locked up for a very short amount of time. And us as police officers, we're still writing up the paperwork, and they're right back out there. And these victims are just traumatized by it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, don't let Governor Gaslight try to convince you that there's no crime problem in the city of Chicago. We're talking about nearly 600 murders in 2024, the 8th highest homicide rate in the nation, the highest homicide rate amongst big cities. I mean, we got this thing in Illinois where we like to celebrate when national trends make things look better for us. And so, yeah, crime is down, but you look across the board, crime is down across the board. But here's the most important thing. of all the big cities in the country, Chicago is still the worst when it comes to crime. 13 consecutive years of the most murders of any U.S. city, 7 consecutive years of the highest murder rate amongst U.S. cities of more than 1 million people. Our murder rate per capita is 3 times higher than L.A., 5 times New York, double the rate in Islamabad, apparently. I mean, this is where it's at. So don't let the Democrats think, well, everything's okay. Yes, crime is getting better, but that's just because it's getting better nationally. We have a problem in Chicago. Don't let Governor Gaslight try to convince you otherwise.
Well, and it's not just the governor;
they-
it's the mayor as well. I mean, the mayor is the lies that come out of the mayor's office are just as rampant. I mean, just last weekend there were 6 murders in Chicago and 40-something people that got shot and injured. I mean, you can't tell me that that's a safe city to be in. My wife and I used to go to Chicago quite frequently just because we love the city, but we don't go there anymore because we've seen it. We've seen the crime. We've seen people, the thugs that walk up and down the street. It is not a safe place to be. And for them to gaslight everybody the way they are, it's a crime in itself. So I applaud Trump. I hope he brings them and get that place cleaned up.
Well, I'll give kudos to the Illinois Republican Party. They put out a little screenshot where, Pritzker was saying, this isn't about crime. And then the literal next story, I'll have Lane bring it up in post. The literal next story is a group of about 10 thieves made away with nearly 130,000 in merchandise. Like, boom, boom. It's like, maybe this is actually about fighting crime. I mean, it's just this, I don't know. Chris, Michael, what do you guys got?
Well, I saw an article that kind of I remembered, the DNC convention, that was in Chicago. And there was an article from back then, May of 2024, where the Chicago PD said that they were understaffed by around 2,000 officers and that JB Pritzker requested 150 National Guard members to be in the city of Chicago during the DNC convention. So when his friends are coming into town and he wants to, all the media is paying attention and all these big names are in Chicago, he wants to make sure it's safe. But as soon as his buddies leave, there's no crime issue whatsoever, and he's just offended that Trump would even think about sending the National Guard here.
Yep.
And I saw Brandon Johnson. There was a clip of him going around from MSNBC, which by me watching that clip, I doubled their viewership. But they were asking him, well, don't you think you need more cops on the street, considering you got a 2,000 cop deficit? And he said, well, we need more affordable housing. That's why there's so much crime. And even MSNBC is like, what are you talking about? Like, people can't afford their rent, I guess. So that's why we have the record for murders. Strange.
So from my perspective on the National Guard coming to Chicago, listen, the perception and the statistics back up the fact that crime is a problem for the city. And even with national trends going in our direction and allowing the murder rate to go down and crime to go down, it's a welcome change, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the city of Chicago are welcoming it. The only problem I could see is that because of the national trends, moving the murder rate down, moving crime down, it doesn't have the same same strong hitting potential as if we were at like a national height of crime. Like if crime wasn't trending down, if crime's trending up, and Trump says, you know what, we're sending in the National Guard, we're getting the hold on this, then I think this could be a really strong hit. But because the Democrats have the fallback of, well, crime's down, guys, it doesn't hit as strongly as it possibly could. So the idea is there, and Trump's going to ride this out as much as he can. It seems like it's working somewhat in Washington, D.C. The only question now is basically whether or not the actual police officers in the city of Chicago want this. I don't believe they stated one way or the other on it as of yet, but
the Caterenza came out on that today and said, I'm sure they'll coordinate with us when the time comes. He didn't seem to oppose it. I mean, doesn't mean they're for it, but he did at least come out and talk today, Thursday as we record this.
Okay. So either way, I'd like to see what the logistics of this are going to look like, but really anything to get crime down in the city of Chicago and to put egg on Brandon Johnson's face is a welcome surprise for this commentator. I just want to see what the logistics are going to look like if this actually happens.
Yeah, we always want to equip our audience with information and responses. So, for those who are wondering, what do you say when JB Pritzker points out that crime is down? First of all, we'll bring the graph up again. Lane's going to bring it up here in post, showing that Chicago leads the nation in homicides for the 13th straight year. But there's another thing to point out. Notice when Pritzker talks about how great crime is, he talks about in Illinois. That's the thing to point out, because he always says in Illinois, not in Chicago. And the point is, Trump's coming to Chicago, not Illinois. Why is Illinois crime not as bad as maybe some other places? Because there's a lot of Republican-controlled areas of the state. There's a lot of conservative-controlled areas of the state that are low crime. And so J.B. Pritzker gets to take advantage of that and say, look, Illinois crime isn't that bad. And so point that out. Whenever J.B. Pritzker comes back and says, oh, look, see, Illinois crime is just fine, he's using red areas to try to take advantage for the lower crime rates in this state, and you want to make sure you're pointing that out. Another thing that you want to point out is, of course, what Democrats always get to. I'm looking at 3, 4, 5 different media advisories from left of center groups in Chicago who are like, no, we don't want Trump here. Just give us more money. Just give us more money. Just give us every single one. Just give us more money. That's it. Our crime prevention is working. Just cut us more checks. And the response is very simply, the crime prevention isn't working. So maybe dumping more money after bad money is probably not the solution here, but that's always their solution. Just cut us more checks. Here's the kicker, though. I don't know if you saw this, Chris, but your buddy Ram came out with a quote about this whole situation. And I just have to point out the total hypocrisy of what this is, because Ram's like, no, we don't need Trump because everything's going good. And here's why it's going well. He said this literally. He said, we're pursuing penalties for gun crimes, and law enforcement should work to combat carjackings. And then, so but the city leaders are already trending in the right path already on these things. Hold on a second. How many bills did we see, Patrick, down in Springfield where Democrats are trying to reduce penalties on gun crimes? They're not getting guns off the street. They're not targeting illegal guns because they don't want to put anybody in jail because they're pro-criminal. This is ridiculous what Rum said, but here's the kicker. This is what he said. We have a strategy for fighting crime. More police on the beat and getting kids, gangs, and guns off the street. Wait a second. Is that actually happening in Chicago? Are they putting more police on the beat? Are they getting guns and gangs off the street? None of this is happening. Ram is saying we're okay because we're doing X, Y, and Z. And the whole point of why Trump is saying he needs to come here is because we're not doing X, Y, and Z. The hypocrisy on this issue just continues to blow my mind.
100%. And Michael early in the show steals my clown of the week. Thank you, Michael, for that one. And the Brandon Johnson quote, what did he dodge it about 6 times?
Oh, yeah.
When asked if 5,000 police officers would help reduce crime. Of course it would. Of course it would. I've been in policing for almost 20 years. Any help that we can get to help deter crime, I will take, every day of the week. 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. As for what Chris said about President Catanzara, Lodge 7, they are fantastic. They are have been great supporters of mine. We got to see how that fits in. If they're for it, I'm completely behind them. It seems to be working in D.C. with the National Guard working with the D.C. police in conjunction with their federal partners. But it remains to be seen. I just get upset when you see the, Democrats line up downtown and really dig their heels in and just throw statistics at you. When I hear it, door knocking out here in the 37th district, you heard it on plenty of news outlets when they're interviewing some of these actual residents of Chicago, and they're saying, no, we don't feel safe. Crime is a problem here in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, I've been trying to get to what I'm about to say for almost a year. It's been in the SFR archives, and I haven't had a chance. So I'm pretty excited because you are 100% correct. And we've talked about this a lot, that especially on an emotional issue like crime, data doesn't matter to people. It's feelings that matter. If they don't feel safe, you can throw all the data you want at them. There was an article on this based on some Gallup polling that was done last year, where even though the stats say that crime is down, people in America still feel like crime is actually up. In that survey, they had 27% people said that they would say Chicago was a safe place to visit, just 27%. There was another poll that said 81% of Americans view inner city crime as a major problem, including a majority of Democrats, by the way. Like this, even though the stats may say it's getting better, it's feelings that matter. And there was that great article I mentioned where they interviewed some people in Chicago. And this lady, Lisa Stringer, I don't know her, she just was interviewed in the article, but she's like, she says this: it's frustrating when people try to dismiss you and pat you on the head and say you're being dramatic. You have a chart, but I'm telling you that my personal lived experience in the last 2 years is the complete opposite of that. For the first time in my life, I don't feel safe. And it's a much longer article that goes into a lot of the reasons why. Maybe it's the rise of social media. Maybe it's the rise of the 24/7 news cycle. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that this lady talked about in the last couple of years, she's witnessed a break-in at a neighborhood business. She saw a stolen car being dismantled. She heard a shooting in the alley behind her home. And while she was at a stoplight, an SUV with two masked people pulled up next to her, and she drove away and barely got away. Like, that's her lived experience. So when you just go say, hey, the stats say you're fine, and pat her on the head, she's like, but I don't feel fine. And that's the point about crime. It's, do you feel safe? That's what matters.
Collin, in relation to the Rahm Emanuel stuff, I didn't necessarily take any of that as him defending the city of Chicago. I took them as campaign talking points. That sounds like a man who's running for something and wants to put his platform out there. This is what he's talking about. We're getting guns off the street. That sounds like he's either carrying water from the state's attorney, which is possible, or he's thinking he's still mayor of Chicago or wants to be mayor of Chicago. That's what it sounds like to me, though I certainly understand the point you were trying to make.
Yeah.
Or wants to be president. Oh, yeah, we'll get him off the street in January of 2029, guys. Don't you worry.
Yep. They'll make it safe for the inauguration and then go right back to what they were doing. Our last thing on this topic before we move on, this is one of those things that, usually I always got one thing per episode that I'm the only weirdo on the planet who thinks about this, but I do think it's worth talking about. Because there are some people who are nervous about the idea of the National Guard coming to Chicago. And I'll be real, I'm a little bit nervous of the sort of the legal implications of that. Yes, I want to keep people safe, but there's a little bit of it. I'll use the term icky. There's just a little bit of this that's like, I don't love sort of the legal aspects of it, even though I do want to keep people safe. But this is where this brought me mentally, which is, this is what happens when you put politicians in charge of what rights you are and aren't allowed to have. Think about JB Pritzker during COVID. He was perfectly happy to shut down schools, shut down entire communities if it would save just one life. Perfectly happy to take away your rights if it would save just one life. Now here Trump is saying something similar. I'm going to take away some of your rights because there's some laws here that say that this isn't maybe the perfectly legal thing to do. And he's saying, you know what? I don't care. I want to keep people safe. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens if you let politicians decide what rights you do or do not have. But I can't look at someone like JB Pritzker, who took away all our rights during COVID and thought that was justified. And now he suddenly doesn't think this is justified. Listen, if you want to take away rights, you don't get to stand on your soapbox and say other people now don't get to take away our rights. You've lost that right. And I think this is what's happening in our politics, is this escalation. This, okay, well, you did one thing, so now I'm going to do the next. Think about redistricting. Well, you did a little cheating, so now I'm going to do a little more cheating, and then now you're going to do a little more cheating. We see this with violence in politics. I mean, we just, obviously this week, we're talking about the horrific situation in Minnesota, just absolute awful political violence we're seeing. But it was just a couple of months ago, there was a story in Axios about how Democrats, in the anger in their base, and even some elected officials are saying their base wants them to take things even further and is encouraging them to get violent to fight back against Trump. If this is what we're pushing, then yes, we're going to see this escalation. My buddy John Gioccaris, who's been on before, he just talked to something really small, but to talk about Trump and his nominees, trying to get his nominees through the Senate. I mean, the U.S. Senate confirmed 98% of George H.W. Bush's and Bill Clinton's executive nominees by this point. Through voice votes or unanimous votes. For George W. Bush, it was 90% by this point. Barack Obama, same deal, 90%. Trump's first term, 65% by this point. Biden's term, 57%. And now for Trump, 0. This is what we're seeing, is this constant politicization, this constant escalation. At some point, someone needs to stand up and say, I'm going to be the adult in the room and just lead. I'm not going to try to go tit for tat and one up the other side on trying to do things even worse, because we are on a circling of the drain in our politics. And clearly, based on what we just saw in Minnesota this week, this does not end well. We need some adults in the room who are going to say no more.
100%. And I think we dealt with it as a House Republican caucus when, the governor came out and said Republicans will know no peace, and even compared us to Nazis at his State of the State address down in Springfield. It's the rhetoric needs to stop. I mean, you saw the like you said in Minnesota with the legislators in Minnesota. These are people with families. These are husbands, wives, mothers, daughters who are trying to, do their civic duty. We deserve to be safe too. And I think the rhetoric on both sides needs to be tampered down. And I would say a great majority of people want to see Republicans and Democrats come together to work for the people. They don't want to see 0% of nominees not going through for the president, because then it just brings government to a streaking halt.
It's August. I mean, yeah, and you know what? Honestly, Patrick, I didn't even reference. You're right. The lawmakers in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I was more talking about the church shooting this week and that political violence. And you're right. This just keeps happening. This is the escalation we're seeing in our politics. And so, yeah, you know what? Pritzker, you don't like that Trump's coming into Chicago against your wishes, but like you kind of started it. You take away rights. Now Trump wants to take away rights. This is what happens. You want to be the adult in the room and go be a leader. I'll be the first to praise you, but you got to do it first. Because right now you're putting the fat jokes out just like other people are to you. So I'm not going to feel bad for you.
Just a quick point on my end. I think, Collin, you're spot on here, because when you see situations like the tragedy at Annunciation in Minnesota, and Trump and the crime in the city of Chicago, and all these different problems that are affecting our society, as long as government and politicians don't do anything about these problems, it will ultimately get to a point where the only solution is going to be the extreme one. For the crime element, it might be Trump sending the National Guard into the city of Chicago. Okay, so if you can't fix a problem up to a certain point, you can't be surprised when that problem, is given solution to that problem is perceived to be radical or over the top. And that's the problem with the government and politicians right now.
Yeah. I do want to move us on, Jim. It seemed like maybe you wanted to jump in. Do you want to jump in on this one and get the final word?
Go ahead. Let's go ahead and move on.
All right, cool. I never want to cut off a guest, so thanks for that. All right, let's get into some politics, because that's what most people are here for, so let's do it. We got to talk about the gubernatorial race. Obviously, I'd love to have everyone's thoughts just on the race in general. The latest development that we do, of course, need to talk about is word out there from a number of sources is that potentially Darren Bailey and Aaron Del Mar are considering teaming up as a ticket. I had initially heard that it was more Bailey Del Mar. Sounds like now latest news is Aaron wants it to be Del Mar Bailey. It's certainly an interesting and juicy situation. Apparently they're meeting at some point later this week. We're recording this on Thursday. So maybe if you're watching this, you'll know more already than we know at this point. But I'm curious people's thoughts. If you want to talk about that situation or just the race in general, jump on in. We got to talk about the governor's race.
I think one of the things that we see here with Bailey and Del Mar, you've got representative from south of I-80 and north of I-80. Mm-hmm. And the thing where Bailey had such a problem was in the collar counties and in Chicago last time. Now, I know he's learned a lot with that, but having strength on that ticket with somebody like Aaron Del Mar, and I'm not endorsing either one of them, but if you look at Aaron Del Mar, the guy owns the media up there. I mean, he can give a 20-second soundbite like nobody else, and he's always responded to when they ask for media bites. He's well known. He's got name recognition, and I think if they can't beat Pritzker, they can sure as hell bloody him up a lot, and that may be what if they can't win, they're gonna do some serious damage with him.
And Jim, I can see how people can do the math and sort of connect those dots just like you did. And I guess I haven't really looked at this through the lens you just did, which is I'm a competitive SOB. I always want to win. So I'm always looking at how the heck can we beat him? Because Pritzker, I think, is vulnerable and I want to go kick his ass. But I do think that if you're just looking to bloody him up, right now, I mean, I got to give Bailey some credit. I always try to be objective in this, on this podcast. Bailey's the only one so far who has shown the ability to put out a solid statement, to have a press operation. I mean, so far we've heard nothing from Mendrick, nothing from most of these candidates on the Chicago crime situation and Trump potentially sending the National Guard. Bailey's team came out with a great statement blasting Pritzker for it. I mean, this is the kind of activity you need from a gubernatorial campaign. And right now, sadly, the other candidates just don't seem capable of doing it. I mean, Mendrick, this should be right up his alley. Where the hell is he? This should be his thing. He should own this, but there's nothing. So as much as I do have problems and concerns with a Bailey ticket or even a Delmar ticket if it's constructed badly, and I voiced those on Finkston's radio show this week. Some people agree, some people disagree with my opinion. I do want to give credit. At this point, the only one of these candidates who looks or is acting like an actual candidate is Darren Bailey, and I got to admit that.
Yeah, but Collin, how much of that is in the land of the blind, a one-eyed man's king?
Oh, all of it. Like, all of
right.
it.
So
You're 100% right.
I just don't think that. Listen. I'm willing to hear the arguments in favor of having a robust ticket who's going to bloody Pritzker up. My concern regarding that argumentation is that Bailey had the opportunity 4 years ago. He had a general election where he was a nominee, and then didn't really do that for the 5 months he was a nominee of the party. That just didn't happen. I thought Bailey kind of toned down his rhetoric in a way that it wasn't even effective anymore. He kind of wasn't doing anything. So, yeah, I believe that the Bailey people are capable of putting out a press release, but it doesn't really give me satisfaction to know that, like, that's what the most robust statewide gubernatorial campaign is going to look like. No,
this is like being valedictorian of your homeschool class. Like, yeah, you're valedictorian, but you were the only kid in class. You're right, Chris. But I always want to be objective and fair. And my beef with these candidates, I've said it over and over on this podcast, is nobody's getting off their ass and running a campaign. Bailey's not even in the race, and he's already running more of a race than most of these candidates. And so while, again, I've made it clear, I don't think Bailey is the answer here, I do at least have to be fair.
Well, I think Jim kind of hit it on the head when he had talked about, a north and south, if that's what you want to talk about. In Illinois, we have a very diverse Republican constituency where, Southern Illinois has a little bit different beliefs or kind of an outlook on what Republicanism is compared to what we kind of deal with in the collar counties. And I would just hope that whoever the next governor ticket or candidate is more of it takes the approach of a Reagan. Yeah, hey, if you agree with me 80% of the time, you're an 80% friend, not a 20% enemy. And I think that's where we get into such problems here in this state where, we start with the name calling and, are you an all or nothing? Are you a rhino? I mean, it just gets kind of ridiculous. I will go back to what you said, Collin, about certain candidates that maybe run in 22. I ran in 22 in a Biden plus 15 district, came up in a little bit short, 1 point short in a state Senate race.
But you overperformed big time, which is the point.
Yeah, you learn a lot in a loss. And if that's any indication on where some of these candidates are looking on how they can improve, how they can get better, how they can connect with voters, then I applaud them, because we are the party of the Big Tent. Let's bring more people into this constituency. Chris and I had talked earlier about what we kind of look at in the collars. We had so many people here in the collar counties who are maybe, union people or blue dog Democrats that pulled tickets for Trump. Yep. How are we not bringing these people into the party? We should be welcoming these people with open arms, encouraging them to come out and vote in municipals, come out and vote in these off-year cycles. I mean, we need to become a more diverse coalition in order to be successful in this state.
Yep. Well, and here, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and say, if Darren runs, maybe Jim is right, and maybe you guys are right that he has grown. I want to see it, because when you talk about a big tent, Darren has been kind of the leader on pushing people out of the tent that he thinks aren't Republican enough. I mean, he's literally one of the figureheads of that, going after Bost because he wanted to be in Congress because Bost wasn't conservative enough. I mean, if Darren's going to be the guy, and if he has grown, like you guys say, maybe he has, I'll be fair. If he shows that, I will be the first to say, all right, I really like to see that. Because there is a path to grow here, and Darren does have a pretty solid base of support around the state. And we could win this race if we have someone who could bring people together. My challenge is I haven't seen that out of Darren Bailey in a very long time. And so, of course, I'm going to assume that I'm not going to see it in the future either. But maybe I'm wrong, and Darren, go prove me wrong.
Well, Darren,
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, again, Darren, real quick, Jim, sorry.
Okay.
Darren's a great guy. Maybe we don't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, but what he did during COVID and really was able to speak up for kids and parents. He has it in him. It's just, can he come out here to the collar counties? Can he open his tent? Can he start to talk about, union Republicans, public service people who maybe have voted Democrat in the past? Can they come out here? That is the key, getting these people on board while still uniting, the Southern and the Western constituency. And that's kind of a puzzle that we haven't been able to kind of figure out in the state. And like I said, we have a diverse constituency in this state. And if once we can figure it out, we're going to be unstoppable. Trump got so many gains. Congressional Republicans got so many gains in this last cycle. I want to keep growing those voters. Let's bring them into this party.
Wise advice.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and the one other thing that I wanted to add is just to reinstate, I think Darren has really figured out a lot of the things that went wrong during that first campaign. I don't think he had the right campaign manager. I think he believes he didn't have the right campaign manager, and a change would do him good there. His messaging needs to change, and he understands that, particularly when it comes to abortion. And that's the big elephant in the room that nobody wants to ever talk about. But it's how we talk about it. It's the rhetoric we use. It's the context in which we put it. And I think he's learned a lot about that over the years, and how he can turn that into a winning message if he were to get into the campaign again. Has anybody heard about Dabrowski? Is he going to get in?
So every week it's next week. This week he did file his paperwork. He filed his D1 this week. So that's another very small, tangible step that he's taken. But even that, listen, I have been a little hard on Ted, mostly because I want to see him run and I want to see him do well because we need more quality candidates in this race. But even the D1 was a mistake. He filed with Jason Plummer and Bob Grogan as the chairman and treasurer. In a vacuum, awesome picks, awesome people. But if you're trying to keep Darren Bailey out of this race, because if Darren gets in, the race is basically over. If you're trying to keep Darren on this race, you don't go file a piece of paperwork with Jason Plummer's name on it. I love Jason. He's been on this podcast. He's the perfect pick for chairman, but he and Bailey hate each other. So if you've got someone on that team who can think strategically, which clearly they do not, someone would say, hey, let's have amend it in November and put Jason on it in November, but you don't file it now because all that's going to do is further nudge Bailey into this race. So yeah, Dabrowski did take another tiny step towards running, but it was yet again a little bit of a stumble. And Ted has a ton of potential as a candidate, but it's frustrating that so far we haven't seen that realized.
Well, nobody can talk policy. Nobody can talk policy like Ted Dabrowski.
Agreed.
He knows it like the back of his hand. But running a campaign is completely a different animal. And whether it's your messaging, your marketing, whatever it is you're doing as far as the campaign goes, you got to have top-notch people, and you can't make mistakes like that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael. You've been trying to get in. Come on, show some guts. Get in here.
He's from St. Clair. They don't have.
He's such a nice guy, man. Cut somebody off. Let's go.
All right. D1 was filed. Committee established. Sounds like I saw him at Republican Day in Des Moines, trying to finalize lieutenant governor, make that pick so we can make an announcement and start circulating. So I'm sure we'll see something in the coming days. But he's got to make a decision, on what is best for him in a general election versus what is best in a primary. Obviously, that's a very tough balance to strike. If you're worried that, picking a certain person for lieutenant governor may increase the likelihood that you have a primary from Darren Bailey and Aaron Del Mar, because it seems like some of the people on the short list could prompt that.
Yeah. Listen, we talked about, Patrick wisely talked about needing a gubernatorial ticket that could reach those Trump Republicans or Trump voters, which many of them are pro-union. We've said for a while that someone like Ted Dabrowski, who has been one of the loudest voices as sort of a fiscal purist and economic purist, where he's not a big fan of unions and clearly has said so many times publicly, even though I'm generalizing what he said. But a Terry Bryant would be a great choice to help him do that. But it seems like he's reticent to make that pick. I know people are whispering in his ear not to make that pick. I mean, again, we need a ticket that can speak to those Trump voters who don't show up in Illinois elections. Having somebody with a union background who could speak to those households in the south suburbs in Will County and Sangamon County and the Metro East, and that could be a big help. But you're right, it could be a challenge in a primary. Well, I guess we'll have to see.
But I think he's got to make a decision if he really believes that this is, that there's only one primary voter that matters, right? You can make a decision on who you want to be involved in your campaign and who you want to be your lieutenant governor that helps you for the November election, but that might result in a primary against Darren Bailey, because obviously a lot of people in that contingency of the Republican Party are motivated by their hatred of other individuals. So it's like, well, yeah, you want Jason Plummer involved. You want Terry Bryant involved. You want Charlie Meyer and people of that nature involved in your campaign if you're running statewide, because they've shown an ability to be able to connect with voters and raise money, and they know what the voters within their districts want. Some of them have even shown the ability to flip a seat that's been held by a Democrat, like Terry Bryant did when she ran for state rep the first time, right? And had very competitive races. So do you want those high quality, allies on your side, or do you want to go with somebody that maybe Darren Bailey will like so he won't run against you and then lose the general? I don't know.
Look, Butler. At this point, I don't think there is anything Ted can do that is going to keep Bailey out of this race.
That's the problem. It's too late.
If Ted wanted to keep Bailey out of this race, he would have needed to announce a month ago or 2 months ago, preferably, and put himself into that lane and maybe synthesize maybe more of the establishment figures that you're mentioning. And I'm sorry to call you guys that. I know you're watching the podcast, but establishment figures like Terry Bryant, like Charlie Meyer, and you can synthesize that with the staunch conservative people like, Darren Bailey and those sorts. He could have synthesized that, but because he's waiting so long, he's hawing. He hasn't announced. And so he's basically opening the door to Darren Bailey. Let's say tomorrow a deal is cut, because as we know, Aaron Delmar, he cuts the best deals. Let's say the deal is cut tomorrow, but to create the Delmar Bailey or Bailey Delmar ticket, Ted screwed himself, because he's going to let them get into the race first. They're going to carve that hard conservative lane, which Ted could have spent the last month or two chipping away at. He could have been on the news. He could have been out at Republican events talking about his conservative policies, and eventually people will be like, Darren Bailey, he's running, Ted just came to my Lincoln Day dinner last month. I really liked him. I think I'm going to back him. But the longer Ted waits and the longer he hems and he haws, the more it opens the door for Darren Bailey to just kick the damn door and say, hey, guys, I'm running again. Aaron Delmar's my running mate. We're going to make Illinois great again. And you know what? We're going to be stuck in the same situation we were 4
Chris,
years ago. We're screwed.
And you and I and others have been saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. I can tell you, I know that a whole lot of people have been in Ted's ear saying they're wrong, don't listen to them, just hold, just hold, just hold. Those people are people who haven't won an election in a very long time, but whatever, I digress. The point is they've been telling him to hold. And here's what I would say. Whether I'm right or they're right, the game has changed. Whether you agree or disagree that he should have waited this long, the point is now that Darren Bailey has said he's looking at this race, everything else doesn't matter. You've waited. So whether I was right that you shouldn't have and Chris is right or not, who cares? That's armchair quarterback. What matters now is this is the race right now. And every day you wait, is another day this thing slips further out of your grasp. And Chris, I looked at Ted's social media because I've been following it. He is starting to go to Republican events. It seems like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Go to Republican events and speak, but don't actually announce. The problem is until you're the announced candidate, you're not able to line people up behind you when you go to those events. So it's not enough to go to the events and say, well, I will be announcing. Everyone's still waiting to see it actually happen. And so you're not lining up support even though you are going to those Republican functions. It may be too late at this point. I don't know. But Jim asked the question. It was a very good question. Is he running? Is he not? At this point, I don't know. And I mean, you're looking at the field. I mean, it's, again, I said it before. Mendrick has wasted now 2 great opportunities. When the Texas legislators came to town, you have a sheriff in the race who could have been the face on every Chicago TV station, every media market. Mendrick could have been everywhere during that week or two that they were here.
They were in his county.
Yeah. And then now, the last week after Trump said he might bring the National Guard, again, you're a sheriff in a suburban county. You could have been everywhere. He hasn't even posted once on social media about it, let alone try to be out there. Like, at this point, it's a non-campaign. It really comes down to, is Ted getting in? Is Darren getting in? Is Aaron getting in? Who's teaming up? That's the race. Those are the only players we got left in this race at this point. All right. Seems like we've gone through this. We'll all be interested to see what happens over the next week. And I'm sure we'll be talking about the governor's race yet again. All right. Let's talk quickly about the Senate race. There's news there. Don Tracy, who, full disclosure, is a friend and we're working with him in some capacity. He has put $2 million of his money into his race as a clear sign. He's not just doing this because he wants to run for office. He is serious and he is in. And he opened up his checkbook to prove it. I think, again, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but at this point, we need somebody serious in our statewide positions. And even Jeannie, I've said it this past week, she and Don have not always seen eye to eye. She said, you know what? We got a serious candidate in that race. We haven't always agreed, but he's thinks and said he's not going to embarrass us. She said he's going to hopefully help push the party forward and help unify us and speak well in the media. Don brings a lot to the table in that regards, and with Richard Porter not running, Don thankfully has stepped into that role, and at least we do have one statewide office filled with somebody who's serious, who's got the funds to run a real race.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for Don. He's always been great when we've spoke and has done any favors for me that I've needed on my behalf, especially in 22. Putting your money where your mouth is, showing that you're going to throw $2 million in a race and showing that you are personally invested is huge. It shows a lot to the voters. It shows a lot to potential donors. I mean, he is a very classy man. He's very smart, and I have to agree with you, Collin. I don't think he's going to do anything to hurt the party. We see on the Democrat side, Raja, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, and Rep. Kelly. Hopefully they kind of bloody each other up. So by the time the general comes around, they're limping in, and Don's been able to make inroads and some of that independent and light blue constituency.
Yeah, they're playing patty cake right now, but come January, those three will not be playing patty cake. That Democratic primary is going to get nasty.
I think the fact that he put $2 million of his own, I think it was a loan, actually, but I mean, the fact that he's got $2 million into that campaign also signals to other donors around the state that, hey, you know what, it's time to start ponying up. We're trying to get this Republican Party back on track. Here's my $2 million. What are you going to donate, to these other campaigns? And I mean, we know that the donor base has dwindled recently with all the infighting that's going on in the Republican Party here in Illinois. But I think Don Tracy set a great example by putting that $2 million in there, and we'll draw other donors to do the same. He's got some baggage, I think, that he's going to have to deal with, particularly why he quit the seat as the Illinois GOP chair, with all the infighting going on. And I can tell you the Washington infighting is no less, and he'll have to deal with that there as well. But he is a good man. He would give you the shirt off his back. I've had many good conversations with Don Tracy, and I'm glad he's in. He is a serious candidate, one of the only serious candidates that we have.
Yeah, and Jim, you brought something up that I do want to make sure I talk about, because several people are like, yeah, it's a loan. They've clarified that. Because we're so used to Pritzker and Ronner, who were billionaires who didn't loan, they just put it in. we all sort of think that's the norm, but actually the norm is to loan it. That's what everybody does, is they loan it. We're so used to Pritzker and Ron are just dumping it in because who cares? But that's how, not only in Illinois, but across the country, they usually loan it. That's the standard way to do it. But of course, some people, like the Tribune, had a horribly slanted, I don't know what's going on at the Trib, especially with Ray over there, but a horribly slanted article about, it was just a loan, and, Raja has way more money. And then they dinged him they went after Dot Foods and were like, well, Dot Foods is inclusive, but Trump isn't. So we'll see what that means. Like, I don't know, man. It was pretty bad. I've usually defended the Trib, but they really have gotten pretty slanted. But loan is the standard way to do it for anybody who's wondering.
Yeah, that article from the Trib, I was reading that this morning, and especially that last line just came out of nowhere. I was like, what the heck
was an
is
unnecessary
going on
slap
here?
just because they could.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm excited. I think Don's going to be a great candidate. Good for him on putting the $2 million in to get this thing started. And hopefully the checks just keep coming from other people, not just Don.
I can tell you,
I think they will.
It's started. I mean, people are very excited, and they want to be involved, and they want to cut checks. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, let's go to some legislative races. Because we all know that we talked a lot of statewide, but a lot of the big battles in Illinois are going to be at the legislative level. And the number one pickup opportunity in either caucus, but especially in the Senate, is Senate District 48. Republicans have been trying to get Frank Lesko to get in that race for a while now, and he's officially announced that he's going to do it. So I know Senate Republicans are pumped. I know Steve McClure is especially pumped. That is his top priority in that race. And Lesko, I mean, listen, if you don't know Frank, this dude, he just wins every time. I've only known 4 or 5 people in politics like Frank who they're counted out. It's like Amy Grant. They're like, oh, yeah, they're just counted out, and then somehow they just win. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows how they do it. Lesko is just that type. And so he's won a number of times there in Springfield and in Sangamon County. And Senate Republicans are hopeful that he's going to do it again in that Senate race. So their top race, and they got their top person in the race. So kudos to them.
I think one of the coolest things with him is, he ran for county recorder in Sangamon County, beat the Democrat incumbent by, I think, 41 votes. Then they put it on the ballot in April to dissolve the office altogether. It passed overwhelmingly. So he's on his way out the door, close that office down, merge it with the clerk's office, save the taxpayers money. And now he's going to take on Doris Turner and hopefully show her the door as well.
Yep. And in our analysis of the various races around the state, we said that District 48 is going to play like a D3 or a D4. That is, by the numbers, our best pickup opportunity in either the House or the Senate. So if you're watching this, even if you don't live in that region, in the Springfield area, 48, you should be watching. And heck, if you can help, go help. It's not enough just to hold on to our seats in this next cycle. We got to go pick some up. And 48 is going to be one of our best chances to do it. All right, let's keep moving along. There are other announcements that have happened in various legislative races. So we'll go through a couple of them here. You guys might have some you guys want to point out. Just a few that I want to make sure we talk about. So Don DeWitt, as you guys know, has retired or is retiring. We mentioned that there was a Republican who was running in that race. Well, now it turns out there are 4 Republicans who are running in that race. Let me see if I can get them all. We got Cody Holt, who just announced. Danielle Penman is somebody who's announced. I don't know her. Tom McIntosh has announced, and then we previously mentioned that Jessica Brueggemans had announced. So it looks like Republicans in that district are going to have no shortage of options for Senate District 33, and that's going to be one of our most important hold districts. And yet again, it's going to be in the Senate. So man, Curran has got his work out for him, but that race is going to play more like a D3 as a hold. So that's going to be a tough hold for Republicans. So whoever comes out of that primary is going to have their work cut out for them. Couple others, then I'll open it up to you guys if you've got some thoughts on any of these races. There's another candidate who is announced now in what is now the open 51st district. We talked about Tasiu for DK was going to give that another try. It looks like HRO has recruited somebody that they'd like to see there. She hasn't announced, so I'm just giving you a heads up that there's somebody who's making the rounds who is going to be announcing in that district. So we'll see. There's now going to be a primary for 51, which is now an open seat. So let's see how that plays out. And then Brandon Schweizer, one of the toughest holds that the House Republicans are going to have in 104. He's now got his first Democrat opponent, Mary Catherine Robertson. I don't know enough about her. I don't even know if she's the Dem pick just yet. but she has put out word she's going to be running there in 104. And that's going to be one of the biggest, most important holds we have for Republicans in the state. So those are the three updates I've got on the legislative side. Either thoughts on those races, or if you've got your own you want to throw out there, feel free to jump in.
Well, just real quick, Collin, I'll comment on Senator DeWitt. He was a mentor of mine, an absolute statesman, respected on both sides of the aisle. It's an absolute loss for the Senate Republican caucus and our Illinois Republican caucus as a whole. There's going to be a void there. Hopefully we can hold on that one. But Don is an absolute rock, and whatever's next in his journey, I wish him well. I will make a small comment on because I'm a part of the HRO board. I won't be able to comment too much on the races, but I will say that you've talked about it on your show many times that there is ample pickup opportunities. We're going to have some protects as well, but I think when push comes to shove, we're going to have the wind at our backs, the messaging. I mean, affordability is the number one thing that is the top message for constituents, for people that I'm hearing at the door. So as long as we can bang on that drum and show the failures of the state Democrats, I mean, hopefully we'll be in good shape.
Well, you said it. Let's use that. Oh, go ahead. No, we're good. Okay, yeah, that's the great transition into our next topic. So way to go, Patrick. If you get bored serving as a state rep, you can host this podcast. You did it well. Let's talk about that. So we have done our latest quarterly tracking poll of Illinois voters, and as we've done in the past, we give a free preview to our viewers and our listeners of this podcast. So let's do that next and talk about what issues are resonating right now with voters, and what's working. I mean, Patrick already said it, so we don't have to go too much in depth, but I do want to show some of these numbers on screen. Let's start with this. We ask what's the top issue to voters right now. And if you see, Lane will bring it up on screen. All of us have it on our own ends. But you see the top issue right now, you see it's the economy in number one, threats to democracy is number two, healthcare, and then inflation, immigration, and then the rest are 5 or 6% or below. If you add up all of the economic issues that are there, you'll see they combine for 47%. That is by far highest. And that's what we always want to point out. That is, you just said, Patrick, it's affordability. Because you look at economy, healthcare, taxes, inflation, those all go under the same header of, I cannot afford to live here in this freaking state anymore. That's what those come up. And I'll have Lane bring this up. The affordability question we ask, is it affordable or expensive to live in Illinois? And for the last 5 quarters straight, it has been by far way more people say it's too expensive to live in the state. And it's not even close. It is by an average of 34%. And here, it's everybody who agrees. Males, negative by 34. Females, 34. Young people by 17. Middle-aged people by 51. Seniors by 34. Every demographic, including Hispanics at 14, blacks at 11, Asians at 75, which is just because it's a small subset, it's not going to be that high. But it's not just conservatives that matter. It's even liberals by 19% say it's too expensive. Even Democrats by 14% say it's too expensive. Patrick said it. He's 100% right. It's cost of living. It's affordability. Moderates, independents, all the way over to Democrats agree it is too damn expensive in Illinois. If we're not talking about that, we're not winning elections.
That's the message we have to capitalize, not so much during the primary when we're beating each other up, but when we get into the general election and talking about how we care for our the people here. That's the big issue. Economy. And I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to take my kids to that unless we get, and this is going back to the conversation we just had about Don Tracy. That's one of the messages that he's going to take to Washington, is making it more affordable to live here in Illinois.
Yeah, 100%. What I do want to point out, I know I always get grief for this, but there's a reason why I point this out. For those who just focus on taxes, Lane will bring that up again on screen. It's not to say that taxes are a bad issue, but look where it's at 5.4%. It's 8th in the list. If you just hyper-focus on taxes, you're missing the mark. Yes, taxes are a huge deal, especially in the suburbs, property taxes, I get it, but it's part of the whole package. It's too unaffordable. If you just keep saying taxes, you're sitting at that eighth out of 11 or 10 or 12 issues. That doesn't work. But when you go under the header of affordability, now you see it's not just taxes, it's healthcare, it's housing, it's inflation and affordability and cost, it's the economy, as Jim just said. If you give yourself that header, now you get to talk about all these issues that really resonate with voters.
Yeah.
Couple other things to point out, because we can't miss this. Threats to democracy yet again came in second. That issue is not going away. And yes, it's an issue mostly left of center. Liberals at 42, Democrats at 32, women at 19. It's a white issue at 20. But here's the thing you should remember. If you forget anything I say, remember this. Threats to democracy is the top issue for 30% of seniors. It's by far their top issue. And over the last 6 to 8 years, Republicans used to do great with seniors. We have been losing ground fast amongst seniors, and this is why. This is one of the reasons why we've lost ground with seniors. And so I know threats to democracy is a left of center issue. I get it, but it's working with seniors. Do not forget that it may be the scary issue that, Republicans are like, what does that even mean? But it's working with seniors. Don't forget that. You're going to have to address it with seniors, especially in a general election.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last thing I'll point out is just some of those lower polling issues that, still matter. Immigration was fifth, so it's not out. It certainly still plays especially well with conservatives, especially well with Republicans. So it's a great primary issue. Crime, I want to point out, is sixth. So you've got these candidates who are running, focusing on crime, like Mendrick in the governor's race. We've got Gianno Caldwell, who's thinking about running for Senate, focused on crime. I'm not going to say crime's a bad issue, but Chris, back when we talked about Chicago crime in our first issue today, was right. It's not the top issue for voters anymore. You see it right here in this poll, coming in at sixth. Doesn't mean it's a bad issue, but it's clearly not the top issue for voters anymore. And you got to know that. If you run only on crime, you're kind of missing the boat on what voters are focused on right now. And last thing I'll point out is abortion. Notice it comes in last. Over and over, it's coming in these polls very low, just like that. And it isn't just the whole electorate. Amongst women, it's only 3%. It was 10th in their list of issues. Amongst liberals, it was 6th at only 3%. Amongst Democrats, it was 9th at only 3%. People want to keep saying abortion, abortion, abortion. It's going to be the number one issue. Democrats use abortion to prove that Republicans are extremists, and that's how they kill us. It's not the issue itself. It's how they use it. So don't get lost in that trap, because it isn't the issue. Voters at this point, it's just not among their top issues. Any other thoughts on those things before I go to the next couple issues in the poll?
I think, for me, I think abortion being last is certainly interesting, because the Democratic Party makes it their loudest issue. That heterodoxy on the abortion issue is anathema in the Democratic Party ranks, and it only makes up 3%, the top issue for 3% of voters. It's something definitely to understand, is that those 3% of voters are very active. They have deep pockets. They put their money where their mouth is, and it's just something to remember. But it's interesting to see it show up really, really low on this poll, despite everything that the left has told you, that if you don't support abortion rights, you're just going to lose. And that clearly, as an issue, isn't the case.
Yeah. And just to be clear, it's not like it just showed up this low once. It has been this low for the last several quarters in a row. So this isn't just a one-time thing where it's going to pop back up. We've seen it over and over and over. All right, the last thing I want to point out that we saw in our polling that I think is interesting to talk about, Lane will bring these up one by one. We asked, do you believe the state of Illinois is headed in the right direction or on the wrong track? And what we saw there is, yes, it's underwater. There's a slight plurality of Illinoisans who believe the state is headed in the wrong direction, but it's just 39-42. That's a net of -3. And so this idea of, well, let me give you the other one too. The other one I want to point out is the economy. How optimistic are you about the Illinois economy right now? Yet again, we're seeing it's not that voters think it's awful. It's +5 here in terms of optimism. So not great, but also not awful. And I need Republicans to understand this. There's this sort of mentality. Even Bailey said it in an interview this week where, I think the voters are so frustrated with, the economy and taxes that they're going to turn and vote Republican. The reality is that they're not. Dabrowski and Wirepoints and Glennon and those guys do an awesome job putting out the facts. And the facts are that the Illinois economy is awful right now. On every metric, it's awful, but the voters don't yet believe it. And so there's this idea out there that voters are frustrated and we just need to go out there and run and they'll vote for us. That's not the case. Voters right now don't believe the state overwhelmingly is headed in the wrong direction, even though they should. Voters don't think the economy is awful, even though they should. The facts are with us, but right now, opinions aren't with us, and opinions and feelings are what win elections. And so while the facts are with us, we're going to have to do a much better job over the next 14 months showing voters how things are not going well and how they could go better if they voted Republican in this next election. If we just assume that because we're 50th on almost every metric that voters are just going to magically vote Republican, we're going to yet again be shocked that we lost again in the November elections. We have to connect the dots for them because right now they don't believe it.
Well, Collin, I mean, they had the same messaging after they passed the largest budget. They said we passed a balanced budget for the eighth year. We passed a balanced budget. They're very good at the messaging, and I think us as a Republican Party, we need to get better at that. Talk about the kitchen table issues, the affordability issues, the property taxes, how expensive it is just to go to the grocery store to fill your tank up. I mean, if we can identify with voters on that and talk about these businesses that are fleeing the state, I mean, we have all of the messaging there. Whether crime is an issue at 6, you look at all those issues, these are Republican issues that we can message on in a positive manner. We just got to get our heads out of our you-know-whats and start really screaming from the mountaintops on these.
Well, we showed. Voters overwhelmingly think it's not affordable, and yet they're still saying the economy's fine and the state's headed in an okay direction. So clearly they agree with us that things aren't affordable, but they have not yet connected those dots, and that's what we've got to do if we want to go out there and win some elections.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our next topic here. Let's talk about the CTA and the fiscal cliff, because this thing's just driving me crazy, and we don't always get to talk about it. But I thought the NBC5 article did a great job of pointing this out, because this was just gnawing on me for the last week, where the RTA was able to shift some money around to the CTA so that now the fiscal cliff isn't going to hit until sometime in the middle or late in 2026. And the first thing I thought was, well, gee, isn't that you admitting that CTA is the fiscal cliff? It's not to say that RTA and Metro and PACE don't need help. They are facing some struggles, but clearly the vast majority of the transit problem is the CTA. And to me, this was a full-on admission that this whole thing we're going through right now to bail out it is to bail out CTA. Yes, I get it. We got to help Metro. We got to help PACE. We got to help RTA. I'm not diminishing that. But clearly, if their fiscal cliffs were so okay that they could shift over almost $100 million to push CTA into next year, that tells me that CTA is the problem. And clearly, at this point, when they talk about raising taxes on Illinoisans, on suburbanites to solve the fiscal cliff, it truly is to bail out Brandon Johnson's CTA. They just admitted that to me when they were able to move this money over and push back the fiscal cliff. Am I wrong?
No,
Well,
you're wrong.
right.
You're absolutely right. And I think one of the problems, though, is that they're not, and maybe they are, but they have got to look at reform first before they look at how they're funding this thing. I mean, there's a problem with the CTA, with the governance of the whole RTA. There's a problem with the routes and how they are. They've got to redo that, and the whole sprawl of all these different agencies. They need to take a close look at before they start asking for our taxpayer dollars. They need to take a look at all those factors first and kind of reform how they're doing things up there.
Yeah, and I was started to say how NBC did a great job pointing this out. So the RTA reduced significantly. They defunded 2 really popular programs for people with disabilities, the RAP and TAP programs, which are super popular amongst those with disabilities. They said, listen, they had to put new limits in that take place starting on October 1st. And so if you're a Republican, you should be saying specifically this, that these popular transportation programs for people with disabilities were defunded in order to delay CTA's fiscal cliff. That wasn't me saying it. That was NBC saying it. And it's actually 100% true. We've got and you hear it from Pritzker and the Democrats all the time. We want to help those who are the most in need, the most vulnerable. Here we show it. Yet again, Democrats are supporting and are pushing this idea to hurt those with disabilities in order to bail out their badly governed programs, in this case, CTA. Yet again, we see it where Democrats are hurting those who are the most vulnerable in order to bail out their pals and their buddies in government. You absolutely, to our viewers, you should be pointing this out and talking about this. I'll make sure Lane posts in the comments the link to the NBC article. If you're a Republican, you should be posting that and talking about that constantly.
Well, when I'm looking here, I just did a quick Google search, and it says that they have not adjusted the rates for CTA, the fares, since 2018. So it's been 7 years since there's been any adjustment in rates. I get it that COVID was part of that, and they probably didn't feel like they could do that during that time period. But obviously the cost of everything, I mean, we've been talking about inflation. The cost of everything has gone up in that time. Why can't we increase the rate by 25 cents, 50 cents? I mean, not even a drastic amount, but to help close this gap so they don't have to, tax me for every Amazon delivery drive or delivery, 350 miles away from the closest train station.
Yep. Well, Michael, we've said that over and over, that they're sort of just running over this cliff. They're aware it's there, but they're just saying, yeah, we're not going to make any changes until we get to the cliff. It's like, if I'm running my business that way, I'm out of business. Like, if I see a cliff coming, I need to start cutting costs now, start raising revenue now to make sure I'm prepared for it. These transit agencies haven't done that, and then they want taxpayers to bail them out. I'm saying, could you put a little of your skin in the game first? But they show no willingness to do that.
It's classic Brandon Johnson, classic Chicago. Like, it's a problem that they created, but it's somebody else's problem to fix. So we'll get on the phone with JB, call down to Springfield and say, hey, we're going to need some money here. Can you guys help us out? They don't want to look in their, bank account and try to figure out if they can make some adjustments. Just call Pritzker.
Well, they're gonna ask for $1.5 billion, and yet they're still going to fund under their sanctuary city policies all these other programs for the illegal immigrants that are here. They're going to house them, give them education, give them health care. All that money is going to that rather than going into a program like the CTA. And they're going to take this up in Springfield in the veto session, I'm sure. So, Michael, you're right. I mean, it's time to call down there and get these people, let them hear your voice.
Collin, back to your earlier point. I've heard from a lot of my suburban mayors that they're worried that this is a possible bailout for Chicago. I think they're on the last day of session. The Senate Republicans had talked about it during their floor debate, that they were worried that this would be a suburban bailout for Chicago. So, I mean, if this is something that's going to be brought back in veto session, hopefully we can come to a good solution that we can keep all these programs running. Because if you're saying that some of these disability programs are now defunded because of this, I mean, that's an absolute travesty.
I wonder
Chris, come closer to your mic. We can't hear you.
Oh, I wonder how much energy they have to fix this in veto session, because by the narrative right now is that everybody has just pushed back the fiscal cliff. Like, I don't remember how many months it was. It was like 6 months or something, Collin. They pushed back the fiscal cliff for the CTA. Either way, they pushed back the fiscal cliff for the CTA. So I wonder if they're going to. I would say that it's not a good idea to make this an election year problem in 2026. But I also wonder if they want to make it an election year problem, not for themselves, but for Brandon Johnson, because with this being the CTA, this is something really easy. Listen, if the ball bounced a different way and I was working for the Democrats still, this is how I would let the narrative play out. That Brandon Johnson let the CTA go broke, and he's begging you in DuPage County and Will County and whatever county, St. Clair County down by Michael Butler, he's asking you for his money. We're not going to give it to him. Let Brandon Johnson go down and then bail out the next. That might be another.
I want to know, I mean, Jim down in Tazewell County, how many of your voters, even Democrat voters, are like, sure, I'll pay more in taxes to bail out CTA? I mean, it's
no way.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one topic. We'll do this fast. We skipped this last week. Again, I usually have an issue that just gets stuck in my crawl, and everyone's like, Collin, grow up. It's not a big deal. But I don't know. And we got a police officer here, so I want to take advantage and get Patrick's feelings on this too. I'm starting to see this trend from Democrats. It's scorched earth. And I think Republicans need to know it. The Democrats they're willing to hurt anyone and everyone. As long as they can hurt their enemies, they're okay with it. And I got two examples. So let's talk license plate readers. We don't have enough time to get all the way into this, but I'll give you the summary, which is a lot of suburban communities have installed these license plate readers, which have been really helpful for crime, especially crime that's coming out of Chicago. I had a long conversation with a suburban mayor who told me that when they installed these, it was huge for their police officers, because when these criminals with known license plates that they know they've got a criminal record, when they get off Route 90 and come, at least up by us on Route 90, and come into their communities, when that license plate reader alerts them, that is hugely helpful, because if they come in, commit a crime, get back on 90 and go back into Chicago, if you don't know they're here, by the time you figure it out, they're gone. So these license plate readers have done a great job helping them reduce crime, but now you see this Democratic push to eliminate these license plate readers because it looks like maybe once or twice they were potentially used to identify somebody who came in from out of state to get an abortion, and potentially they were used, though this Flock company completely disagrees. But according to Alexi, they were potentially used to find people who were here illegally by ICE, and Flock says that's a lie. I don't know. But Democrats don't care. They don't mind if they make these communities in the suburbs less safe, as long as it gets them their political points that they want when it comes to immigration issues and abortion issues. I'm looking at it as they're willing to make our whole communities less safe for that tiny little win that they can go tell to their base. Am I crazy?
I can't speak to the story, Collin, but LPRs have been an absolutely essential tool and have helped law enforcement solve a lot of crimes that usually in the past might have been unsolvable. So, I mean, like you said, if they're going through one spot in town or going on an expressway and they pop up in one town, go up to another town, I mean, we're able to get that notification instantly, which is huge for law enforcement. This is for, I mean, it solves all sorts of crimes, felony crimes, et cetera. I mean, it's a shame that they're using something that's been a positive for law enforcement and keeping our city safe. I mean, we have recruitment and retention problems for a reason. In our police departments, I had spoke on the House floor about this. Naperville, which is the second largest city in our state, having recruitment and retention problems. The law enforcement budgets that have been put through the state, they were slashed. And we're wondering, why our communities are less safe and why people don't feel safe, and LPRs are just another tool that law enforcement needs. And I think it would be a shame if somehow these were somehow banned here in Illinois.
If I just saw the one story, I might leave it alone. But there was a second example of this, which was SB 246, which was a Mike Farrick's bill. Again, I'm going to summarize because we're almost out of time. But essentially, it would allow nonprofits to put into an investment pool that's managed by the treasurer, so they could get some of those investments back, raise some of that money, especially in an era, if you don't like the cuts that DC is making, then maybe this is a way to help some of these 501c3s, these nonprofits, recoup some of that money they're not getting. But Pritzker vetoed it, and his veto message was, he didn't even hide it. He said, well, there's some 501c3s that we don't like, and he used a very extreme example, which wasn't even true, as his proof. The reality is, and he even hinted at it in a later interview, that there's a whole bunch of conservative 501c3s, political 501c3s, that he doesn't want to allow to use this program, and that's why he cut it. Again, so all the nonprofits in the state of Illinois don't get this opportunity with the Illinois treasurer because Pritzker didn't like the fact that some of those 501c3s are conservative and they would also benefit. This is the Democrats right now. It is scorched earth for them. They will hurt everyone as long as it hurts conservatives, as long as it hurts Republicans, as long as it hurts Trump. Good. We'll hurt everybody because we hurt who we wanted to get. Got to get this, Republicans. Democrats, they are willing to go scorched earth right now to win. It's not right, but it's the reality.
And a lot of what they're saying gets back to that gaslighting. A lot of it is not true. They talk about the January 6th, the Oath Keepers, and all this other stuff that Pritzker mentioned in that veto letter. It was ridiculous what he was reaching for, and it didn't make sense at all. And it defies logic that he would hurt these 501c3s like that.
Even Ferris was like, "What are you doing, man?" So
yeah.
yeah. All right, let's move to our news you can use. This is our quick hit section. We're going to go through some of the things that you as our audience should be aware of. I'll give some details, and any of our panelists who've got thoughts can jump in with their thoughts. Of course, I'm going to start at DCFS. There was a report out, Capital News Illinois, who've done a great job on this, on reporting. They put out a report on DCFS because they finally got details in the Mackenzi Felmlee situation. There were 10 different caseworkers who were assigned to her case over the, 3 years, I think, that she was under DCFS's care. And yet none of them were able to step in and make a difference here. The headline here, I don't love the headline they use. It's my only ding. Their headline was DCFS timeline and foster child's death reveals 10 caseworkers, but no credible findings of abuse. And that's the problem, is that these 10 caseworkers, despite what we now can see was plenty of obvious signs of abuse, they couldn't find any reason to step in and do something. Looks like 5 years she was in state care. I misspoke earlier. But 10 different caseworkers, which the Cook County Public Guardian said, that's ridiculous. That shouldn't happen. But then some of these, they had said that there was a site visit 2 days before she died. Well, we now learn it wasn't even a site visit. The caseworker just called the foster mother, didn't even go in. Well, the foster mother, of course, is going to say everything's fine. They were copy pasting reports. They weren't actually going in and doing reports. And this girl was a valedictorian who was 90 pounds by the time she died and emaciated. You're telling me at no point over those 5 years somebody couldn't go, maybe we've got a problem and we should do something. I mean, I could read some of this horrible stuff, but I mean, she died of a blood clot, and they're now saying part of the reason why she had a blood clot was because her foster mother made her wear diapers and tied plastic bags to her legs to keep the waste from leaking. And one of the doctors said that's why she got a blood clot. I mean, it's sick. And this has all happened under Pritzker's DCFS. And since 2018, over 1,200 stories just like this, over 1,200 of the most vulnerable in our state have died. And it's all stories as gut-wrenching as this. This should be front page news every frickin' day. But of course, there's only people like us who are out there talking about it. But this alone should mean Pritzker doesn't get reelected, because this is serious.
This girl could have
Collin,
survived had they called they didn't call 911 for like 30 minutes.
Over an hour,
yeah. It was an abhorrent amount of time. And this lady was supposed to be authorized to be a foster care parent. They need more investigators. They need more thorough investigations. It is sick, like you said.
Collin, you talked about the Democrats being the party of the most vulnerable. I mean, how does it get more vulnerable than children in DCFS care?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you 150%. We should be banging the drum on this. We have down in Springfield. We haven't been able to get some traction. I introduced a bill that still needs a little bit of work. Hopefully, with some stakeholders, maybe we can try and try it again in the spring session. But it was to video record these interviews with these children and with the possible offenders too. I mean, police officers have body cameras. Why are we not doing this with our most vulnerable? I mean, obviously there would be a cost associated with it, but I mean, what is more important than children in foster care or abuse and neglect with our kids? So, I mean, hopefully we can get some traction on this. I mean, we should be banging the drum. As Republicans, that hey, we are the party that we are here for the most vulnerable. So, I mean. Hopefully we can get some traction on this bill next go around, but I think it's a start. It's definitely a talking point for sure.
Yeah, and Republicans have been trying. Hopefully Democrats will join us and actually do something about this. All right, let's keep on the trend of Pritzker's failures. Let's talk about the Department of Corrections. There was a story out that talked about how Illinois is currently experiencing the highest amount of prison lockdowns in the state since 2020. And 86% of these lockdowns were due to a lack of staff. Let me just point out what happens in a prison lockdown, because the story does it very well. It's a WTTW story if you want to look it up. What happens during these lockdowns is it's essentially solitary confinement. They interviewed somebody who said they got to go to the cafeteria for the first time in 2 years. years. I mean, listen, I understand these are criminals. These are people who are serving time, but they're also humans. And this idea that just because Pritzker can't manage Department of Corrections and get enough employees in there so that they don't have to lock down all these people who are in prison so that they're forced to live basically in solitary confinement for 2 years, that is inhumane. And it's yet another failure of the Pritzker administration, who supposedly is this great administrator. And yet we see stories like this every single week. Maybe the guy should stop running for president. They should actually do something about the problems in Illinois.
I think it's another example where he just doesn't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, he says one thing and does a complete opposite. So
on this next
I
one,
agree, Collin.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree, Collin. I believe he's completely left Illinois in the dust and is more concerned about 28 than actually taking care of the residents here in the state.
Yeah, let's talk about another Pritzker failure, because there are a lot of them. IDHS has there was a hearing on their latest audit. And yet again, the audit showed a whole bunch of problems. Chapin Rose pointed out, he's the co-chair of the commission. He said, this is quite frankly one of the worst audits I've ever seen. They had, in their previous audit, there were 33 findings. In 2023, there were 32 findings. Oh, by the way, 25 of those were repeats. Pritzker was governor in 2021. Don't let him say this is Rauner's fault, because, of course, he always likes to blame Rauner. 2021, Pritzker was governor. 2023, Pritzker's governor, and yet none of these problems were fixed. Charlie Meyer pointed out, he's the one who called for the audit, because he said some of his constituents dealing with DHS are being left behind, and he's not wrong. The agency's keeping poor records and doing a poor job, but Pritzker, the administrative whiz that he is, doesn't seem to care enough to actually do something about it. He's been aware of this since 2021 and has done nothing. All right, let's go to the next one. It's, hey, Pritzker. Seems to be a common thread here. JB Pritzker came out with yet another big press release about how great of a governor he is and how he's bringing jobs and opportunities to the state. So he announced this past week that they've got a $2 billion investment from Cronus Chemicals. It's a big deal for the community in Tuscola, Illinois. This is going to create jobs. I will give kudos to Cat Facts. I'm sometimes rough on Rich Miller, but I'll give him kudos. He pointed out that this has been going on since 2013. There was a proposal back for a $1.2 billion fertilizer plant back there in 2013. Pat Quinn at the time was governor in 2014, and he had a big announcement. Yeah, here we are in 2025, and JB Pritzker's taking credit for it. This is how desperate this dude is for flashy press conferences and getting credit for doing a good job as the governor of this state. He's now got to steal announcements from 2013 and 2014 to make it look like he's doing his job. I'm just sick and tired of it. I'm not going to lie.
So you all laughed at me when I said that Pat Quinn nostalgia will be coming back. You all laughed, you all jeered, but here we have another accomplishment of the esteemed Pat Quinn administration showing up in the year 2025. You know, JB Pritzker is a hack. He's a charlatan. He's taking the name of Pat Quinn and his policies and using them on himself. I will not have it. I am announcing that I am calling for a national, statewide general strike in protest of JB Pritzker using Pat Quinn's name in order to benefit his own presidential ambitions. Who is with me? We are all walking out on Labor Day and the day after. No work until Pat Quinn gets the respect he deserves. Thank you.
Collin, you want to kick him off the show? I mean, he just brought the heat. You were talking about booting him in the first segment here, and look at Chris bringing the heat here.
Like, I guess the threat works. I don't know. I like it. He's just worried that Michael's going to get the final word over him, so he finally decides to show up towards the end. Let's stay on this trend of JB Pritzker trying to make things look better than they are. If you read the press release from IDES, which said that the unemployment rate decreased in all 12 metro areas in the latest report by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and by IDES, and this is consecutive months of year-over-year growth, 6 months in Champaign, 13 in Chicago, 21 in Springfield. Man, everything is great. So I just did a quick search on where we are in the country in our unemployment rate. And wouldn't you look at it, we are 40th in the unemployment rate. And yet here we go. Pritzker to IDS is like, look, our unemployment is amazing. We're 40th. And yet they're putting out these gaslighting press releases about how great we are. But of course, that stat didn't make it into the press release, and nobody cared to do one quick search. They all reported on it. Look, everything's great. JB Pritzker is amazing. I mean, the media's in his pocket. I get it, but it still drives crazy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you just got to do, I just literally just went on the website that they listed, bls.gov, and there it is. We're 40th. Not hard to look it up. All right, another story here. Quick one I'll talk about, but there's a hospital in Chicago that Block Club Chicago did a great job on a write-up on this. That's facing all sorts of problems since 2020, flooding. They don't have equipment. People are dying. It's one of the most vulnerable communities in Chicago. It's an awful situation. You should check out Block Club's writing on this. They're calling it the death hospital. But here's the thing that stuck out to me. Despite all these problems, since 2010, the hospital has spent more than $140,000 donating to state political committees. I looked it up. All Democrats, like Chris Welsh and President Don Harmon. This is so Illinois. You've got a hospital that is falling apart, one that's supposed to be serving our most needy populations, and yet they gave 140 grand. How many lives could have been saved with that 140 grand? But they, of course, have to go donate to Democrats because it's freaking Illinois. I just had to point that out.
None of it makes sense.
All right, a couple more. We'll be done with this. Chicago Public Schools. We've talked about it a lot. Well, it's been reported by Chalkbeat in the last week that they now have over $28,000 in debt per student. That's more than they spend per student. It's also among the highest in the country. It's the third most out of any of the largest school districts in the entire country. And here's the thing. Not all school debt is bad. When you have it, think like your house mortgage. When you are a growing district, or maybe there's growth in your community, you might take out some loans to build a school or whatever. That's like taking out a mortgage. Some debt is okay, but that's not what's happening in CPS. In CPS, that debt is going, or that money is going towards paying their daily bills. When the state of Illinois spends money and sends it to the city of Chicago, it's going towards paying for this debt. What do they say? The district will spend roughly $1 billion making debt payments this school year, and CPS is going to use about $400 million in state revenue meant for teacher and staff salaries, textbooks, and other things, but it's going to go towards paying off debt instead. This is so Chicago, but this is where our money is going towards. Instead of going into classrooms to support and educate students and help our teachers do their jobs, nope, it's going towards debt instead.
Yeah.
I mean, wonder why
they have to
CPS
lower
is the
the
only
standards.
school district in the country of these large school districts that has a junk bond rating from Moody's. Maybe this is why.
Yeah.
All right, almost done. Then we'll do our final things here. You know how Pritzker and the Democrats like to say there's no fraud in SNAP? So what DC is doing is inhumane because there's literally zero fraud in SNAP, according to them. Well, just this week, a Chicago grocery store owner was given 3.5 years in prison for stealing $8.3 million from SNAP and WIC, which is a subset of SNAP for women and children and infants, I believe, is the I there. But yeah, $8.3 million that this individual was caught stealing, but there's no fraud in SNAP. So we don't need to do anything to maybe make sure that the SNAP dollars are going towards those needy families who actually need the money. It's okay. Governor Gaslight says everything's fine. Don't look. It's all okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm on a roll, so let's just keep knocking these out. All right. This one is just, I don't know. Personally, this drives me crazy. But House Bill 3248, Pritzker signed it into law. You, resident of Illinois, working families of Illinois will now be paying more in your health insurance premiums because Democrats and Pritzker want to make sure that laser hair removal for transgenders is paid for by their insurance. So your healthcare premiums are going to go up because we got to make sure we're paying for laser hair removal for transgendered individuals. Listen, I'm one of the first to say we should be humane, but maybe working families shouldn't be paying for this. Let's find a line here somewhere where these struggling working families who can't afford health care aren't paying for stuff like this. I don't know. Seems like common sense to me.
We need to be covering hair growth. That's what I believe. Some of us don't have such magnificent hair as Pat or Jim or even Collin. They're giving you some credit. And some of us, we're Polish. We're screwed. We work in politics. That's what we need to be supporting. Screw laser hair removal. We need laser hair growth, damn it.
All right, last one here, and Chris and I both wanted to talk about this, so I'm going to fit it in. But the highest paid public school superintendent in Illinois has retired. He was making almost $500,000. And here's the thing. You want to wonder why our pension funds are underfunded. He's going to make an obscene pension based off that final salary. When they like to tell you, these pensions are for police officers like Patrick, who we all agree should get their pensions, and these low-paid teachers, it's really going toward these high-income earners who are going to make millions and millions and millions off the pension system. And then, of course, I don't know what's in the water there in Dalton, Chris, but the interim superintendent coming in is getting paid, like $1,500 a day to take over? Like, what is going on here? And this is why we have a problem.
It's times like this where I think to myself, where did I go wrong? What am I doing? Here I am. slumping on a Republican podcast, mind you, for pennies on the dollar. And here we got these jamokes out in Dalton making 1,500 clams a day just to, pretend to give kids an education. Where did I go wrong? So I think, we're going to see how this cycle plays out, everyone. But if you see Chris going to get a degree in education or something like that in order to cheat the pension system while getting still good, that is why. Because we have people making $1,500 a day, and Michael and I, we might have to get second jobs based on where things are going in this economy. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, Chris. I want to add this for context. That district, 148, is the only public school district in Cook County on the state's watch list for finances. This is one of the most needy areas that the money should be going towards the kids. If the Stevenson High School wants to pay their superintendent a lot of money, okay, the taxpayers in that district could probably afford it. But we're talking about Dalton 148. That money should be going towards kids. And yet here we go. We're just blowing it on superintendents.
Well, I'll have to make a phone call to the Pope. Tell me his town in line down there. I don't know what's going on.
Seriously. All right, enough ranting and enough speaking by me. I need to shut up. Let's go to our clowns and our OGs. Patrick, I know somebody stole your clown of the week. You could go ahead and put it in because no one's going to remember, so you can start with it if you want.
Yeah, Michael stole my clown of the week, and I know he talked about Morning Joe's viewership, but I had to watch this clip quite a few times because I couldn't help myself from laughing. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 6 times, Brandon Johnson was asked by Joe Scarborough whether 5,000 police officers would help deter crime, and he refused to answer the question. I mean, it doesn't get any more clown than Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago.
Yeah. That was mine too.
There we go. I mean, it's an easy winner. You say Brandon Johnson, you basically automatically win on this podcast.
Yeah.
Who else has got any OGs or clowns you guys want to throw in? What do you guys got? Chris, Michael?
I did a little OG. I saw a story on WGN, and it kind of really hit home as a police officer for me. And then, being down in the legislature and really cultivating a relationship with, Lodge 7 in Chicago and a lot of the great men and women that just put their lives on the line. There was a sculptor. His name was Eric Blome, out of Woodstock, and he sculpted an 800-pound sculpture of Officer Ella French, who was murdered back in 2021, and Officer Carlos Yanes, who I've gotten to know in my time in the legislature, and what a true gentleman, what a warrior that man is. I believe it's on 31st on Ella's birthday is when they're doing the ribbon cutting ceremony in Chicago. And it's take a look at the sculpture. It's beautiful. They interviewed her mom, and she said it was an absolute perfect rendition of Ella. So, I mean, kudos to Lodge 7 and the sculptor Eric Blome out of Woodstock.
I love it. Lane will try to find that and bring it up on screen so our viewers can see that. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I got to give a clown of the week to the Wyndham owner in downtown Springfield that vandalized his own hotel, filed an insurance claim, and now is getting fined $12.2 million. What a character.
Well, I mean, listen, so that hotel is called very phallic names because it is phallic shaped and it doesn't have the greatest reputation in Springfield. There's a joke there somewhere because the guy did this damage to his own hotel and it's a phallic shaped hotel. I'm not saying that I'm going to say a masturbation joke, but there's some pretty good ones I'm sure you can come up with based on the facts of that situation.
Terrible.
What else you got? Chris, you're silent over there, buddy. What do you got?
I was trying to get the exact quote. Listen, there's a lot of things that could be said about the Minneapolis church shooting, many of which I will not disclose in this podcast since many of you are conservatives and you don't want to hear my opinions. But in any case, my clown of the week is the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Freitas, the same guy who's apparently not liberal enough for his own party, but decided to take pot shots at Catholics and Christians and says he didn't want, thoughts and prayers for the victims of this tragedy because, that doesn't add up to action. Listen, there are actionable items that we need to do in response to this shooting that I'm not going to get into here. But to reject the calls for thoughts and prayers when a religious institution has been attacked, I think is tone deaf, and that's why he's my clown of the week.
Well, that's a fair point, Chris. All right, if you guys are still thinking, I'll throw a couple in here. My OG is the DuPage County Republican Party, Kevin Coyne, he promised he would find a candidate in every seat, every race in DuPage County. He announced this week that they had succeeded. Every county board, forest preserve, judicial race that touches DuPage County, they've got a candidate now for 2026. Kudos to them. Great work. I know he put a lot of effort into that. And in a county like DuPage, that's not easy. So good work. But for my clown, let's stick in DuPage. Let's talk about Jean Kaczmarek, the DuPage County clerk, because listen, we've talked about her in the past. She refused to file the paperwork on marijuana, which costs county taxpayers millions of dollars. She was in the news this week because a judge found against her because she's refusing to file paperwork to even pay their vendors. And it's literally just file the paperwork, but she just is refusing to do it. But then another story broke in the Daily Herald as I was building out this agenda where she didn't even show up. I think it was on Thursday, maybe on Wednesday. They're having their budget presentations, and literally she just didn't even show up to do a budget presentation. She was the only one not to show up and refused to be there. The DuPage County clerk, listen, Republican or Democrat, if the DuPage County clerk, who's a Democrat, is refusing to do her job, vote her out. She needs to go. Jean Kaczmarek needs to go. Even a lot of Democrats are now saying she needs to go. She is absolutely a clown of the week, in my opinion. Another one I want to throw out there is Eric Sorensen. So he was out there on Monday at the Illinois State University, and he wanted to talk about, all the DC things that are horrible in the big, beautiful bill. And he claimed that 100,000 people in his district are going to lose health care. Didn't say may, which is usually what they do. They say may lose health care. Even that's a lie. He literally said they're going to lose health care. There's 700,000 people per congressional district. So he's literally saying that 1 in 7 people in the 17th district will lose their health care because of the big, beautiful bill. These Democrats are just getting away with saying these ridiculous lies. And the Republicans have got to be pointing out how much they're just scaring voters with lies and things that aren't even remotely true.
Isn't this what you talked about in the beginning, Collin, with the threats to democracy? And I mean, this just... You couldn't have said it better. I mean, this just shows it's all about feelings and it's not about any sort of truth whatsoever.
No.
I have a feeling my last one might jazz up Sheehan a little bit. Let's see. But my last one here, I was nice to Rich Miller, so I got to ding him a little bit. I'm all about balance. So he is like the number one person defending the Safety Act, saying how amazing it is. He's constantly on his blog saying how great the Safety Act is and defending it. He did that again over the last week where he literally said, no, actually in Illinois, a judge determines whether to release someone after that person has committed a crime. That's actually the problem with the Safety Act, is that judges have been completely neutered. They have no ability to hold somebody if they believe that they're a threat to the public. Capital News said it correctly where they said actually what happens is it's local prosecutors who can decide whether to petition a judge. The judge doesn't get to do that on their own, and that's why a lot of judges are super frustrated, because when they see somebody who's a threat to the public or a threat to their victims, but the prosecutors, especially in, let's say, Lake County or Cook County, the prosecutors decided not to press to keep them in jail, the judge has no choice but to let them out. So this idea that we keep just saying lies about things within the Safety Act, listen, defend it all you want. If you believe in the law, fine, but stop lying about it.
Couldn't agree more, Collin. I think you're spot on with it. I mean, judges have lost the discretion. I mean, we've seen it in some of the cases in my district. I won't get into some of the horrific stories, but it's like because they meet a certain criteria, they have to let them go. And it is just a shame. It's a travesty. I've been saying it from the beginning. I said it on all my media rounds this week, is there is no sense of justice. There's no sense of peace for these victims. And that's where the Safety Act has completely gotten it wrong. This is criminal coddling, and this has just left victims in its wake.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to our closing thoughts. We're going to let our guests go last because both of them did great. Michael, you beat Chris this week, so Chris has to go first. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so I was going to include this in OG.
Come closer to your mic. We can't hear you, buddy.
Okay, I was going to put this in OG of the week, but screw it. We're putting in the closing arguments. For all you Bears fans, now you're probably pounding saying the Green Bay Packers have traded for Micah Parsons. You guys all thought you were getting him. We're getting him. So, that's hilarious. Always love to see Bears fans cry. Anyway, we're up to basically a little less than 2 months until petitions are due, people. As I keep telling people every week, if you have at least some interest in running for office, get your freaking petition packet put together. Start circulating. Don't be like numbnuts Ted Dabrowski, who's got to get at least 5,000 signatures
That's harsh, buddy.
for a statewide. I don't care, Collin. What's he going to do? Not hire us? He's not hiring us to begin with. Who cares? And you have to get at least 5,000 signatures for a statewide run, and probably more than 10,000. You got 2 months, buddy. All right. So if you're looking at getting into the race, or at least think that there's an outside chance that you're going to be on the ballot in 2026, put your petition together. Start getting signatures. I don't care if you file. I don't care if you get kicked off the ballot. Start getting signatures. It's getting too late, guys. Let's pick up the pace here. Let's go. Thank you. Wonderful Labor Day. Have a wonderful Labor Day, everyone. Solidarity forever.
And Chris, we had a rural Republican, I think, county chair who told us that actually a lot of their precinct committeemen, they go out right away. And so if you announce later, those precinct committeemen are not going to be happy because you're asking them to go out a second time to get your petitions passed. So it even hurts you with the grassroots of the party too. So yeah, you're not wrong. Butler, you brought some heat, buddy. What do you got?
I got to echo what Chris said and also say we need somebody to run for treasurer. I haven't even heard a single freaking name. And somebody needs to announce their candidacy, email out their petitions to the county chairs, and let's get this done, because the last thing we want is somebody that's a laughingstock or an international embarrassment like we dealt with in that one congressional district when a literal Nazi ran a few years ago, gets on the ballot. So hit us up, call around, find somebody, because we can't let this office go totally unopposed, or even worse, have a deranged individual running for it, because there's plenty of deranged individuals in this state. Some of them post on Facebook seven times in one day.
Some of them were almost going to be nominated for comptroller.
All right,
Chris.
Jim, you're a busy dude. I'm glad you made the time for us this week. Your final thoughts.
My final thoughts, I just want to, President Trump, this is not on a national level. Trump signed an executive order banning flag burning. And as a veteran, I fought for the First Amendment. I would never myself ban or burn a flag, and I would fight to save one that was being burned. But this particular executive order goes a step further, and it prevents flag burning when it is used to incite violence. And we have seen that over and over and over again in the last few years, where especially you have these student visa, these people over here on a student visa, and they incite riots and all kinds of violence. I think they should be held accountable, and flag burning in those cases only should be banned. Flag burning is a part of free speech. I have fought for it, and so have many other veterans. But in this case, I think it's a good thing to do. So I applaud President Trump.
For those who are watching or listening, Jim put out something called "What Does the Illinois Republican Party Do Now?" It was super well written. Jim, where would they go to find that if they want to read that? That you put a lot of work into that.
I think it's on our Facebook page, Tazewell, the Tazewell County Republican Facebook page. If it's not, I'll put it out there. But yeah,
I encourage people to go on there and read it. Jim put a lot of thought into it, and there's some good ideas in there. Patrick, we talked you up as one of the best Republican legislators we got. Now our audience got a chance to see it. You get a chance to close us down this week. Your final thoughts.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Collin. Jim, I want to say thank you for your service. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to take a look at that article as well. Thank you to everyone on the panel. I think we've talked enough crime at the start of this podcast, and I've talked enough about it this week. I guess I would circle back to when we talked about races, petition passing, and becoming the big tent party. I would just encourage anyone who's running in these races, let's come together as Republicans. Let's, build a big, strong, broad, diverse constituency. We have an opportunity. We have the messaging. The wind is at our back. We have everything to gain here in 2026. So let's come together as a party, and let's not do what we've done before and go into factions. I think we have some fantastic pickup opportunities here in 26. We just got to stick on message and show what the values of our Republican Party actually show here for residents in Illinois.
You know what? I couldn't say it any better myself, so I'm not even going to try. I'll let that be my final word, too. Thank you to our audience for being with us. This being the episode that gets released just before Labor Day, you might be watching this next week because most people have checked out by Friday when this thing comes out. So when you watch this, thank you for being with us. We're going to keep bringing you the latest developments and analysis in Illinois politics. Let's go win some races. Let's go.